Hey, friends. So, if you tuned in yesterday, I did my first ever video post from a doctor's office. Random location, but not quite random because I was having my wrist looked at. And unfortunately, I didn't get a very super conclusive read on things yesterday. I'm going to have an MRI done. There's some mildly worrying things were said about possible ligament tear that is pretty hard to repair and possibly unlikely to heal on its own. So I don't know what the conclusion is. We got to get an MRI. We got to get more information. So hopefully that will happen pretty soon, and I should know more pretty soon. But I did then spend the rest of the day hauling lumber, and my hand was fine, out of in case you're wondering. And then I spent most of today installing a dishwasher, pushing heavy things around, chiseling away at the tile floor in our house. It was a pain. But I kind of recognized my own, when I pulled the dishwasher out. So when I pulled it out about a month ago, it was super hard to get out. It almost didn't come out because of the way the floor was and because of there's a lip that I had to get over and it didn't fit under the counter, and it's not worth explaining, but it was incredibly difficult to get out. And I felt really sort of proud of myself for doing it. When I finished it, I was like, okay, great, done. I have no idea how we're going to get a new one in there. But I spent, the better part of today doing that. And wouldn't you know it, I was actually able to do it. I got it up and running. I saved us several $100s in installation fees. So, all around, kind of a successful day. And, I've mentioned this before, but there are times when it feels like it's raining certain kinds of events, like things breaking. Like if one thing breaks, it might be a fluke. And if it just kind of stays that way, then, maybe you're good. But if one thing breaks and then another thing breaks, then it's kind of like, uh-oh, what are we dealing with? What's going on? What's going on? and so it's been a little bit like that recently. We've got a plumbing issue. We had a dishwasher issue. We had a car issue that finally got resolved. And when those things kind of start to stack up like that, it starts to feel like, okay, here we go. Don't know how deep this goes. And, my only, I guess, the silver lining in something like that is that when I find a way to simply embrace whatever's coming at me, and even if it's like, just seems kind of pointless and stupid, even when that seems to be the case, remembering that it's not about the thing, it's about what level of poise am I able to maintain? What level of internal poise and external poise? Like, how do I comport myself? What do I allow to happen to myself? I watched a couple of Sadhguru videos the other day, and he said basically, what is compulsion? Compulsion means something else rules you. That's what compulsion is. Compulsion means something else rules you. Who wants that? Nobody. Everybody would say they don't want that. And yet, compulsion is compelling, quite literally. And so, frustration, anger, impatience, these are all forms of compulsion. They're all forms of behavior that just get activated because we have a conscious or unconscious thing we're trying to accomplish, and things keep getting in the way, or things keep taking us off track and derailing us and, you know, distracting us. Even our own distraction can be a form of, you know, can be a source of frustration. And if, as often as possible, we can just say, right, this is about my internal poise. What happens to me? And that's really the only thing that we have a choice in, and that we can fully kind of actively control. If we'll do that, then we're sort of like meeting the challenge of the day. Because and it might seem like, you know, the challenge of this is where I think, you know, spiritual practice and really kind of like what can seem like esoteric spiritual edicts, like the only thing you have control over is your internal response to things. You don't have control over your external circumstances. You have only control over your internal response, right? That can seem like a kind of, maybe it's not that esoteric, but it kind of feels like, yeah, but that's not the problem. The problem is this thing that won't get fixed. And it's like, well, that might be the problem, but that's not the core challenge in your life. That problem might just be a thing that's there to see whether it controls you, whether it can rule you, or whether you rule it. You ruling it doesn't mean that that problem is instantly solved. Doesn't mean that you dominate the problem and rule it. That's not that kind of rule. What if you rule it? That just means I determine my internal state. I determine my level of consciousness. I determine my mood. I decide how I feel. And I don't let the thing out there determine my interior experience. Because on some level, that's insane, right? Everybody has to kind of, like, when you put it in those plain terms, which is what I love about the way Sadhguru so often frames things, and you put it in those terms, everybody would say, yeah, well, that is, of course, it's crazy. Like, I should have control over my own internal emotional environment, psychological environment, etc. We would all say that. But that doesn't mean we would necessarily all do that, or that in the moment of some trigger, some relationship, some circumstance, some super annoying dishwasher installation process, we might not get jerked into what's ultimately just a compulsive response. And, you know, but insofar as we actually just remember, this is about what my state is. What's my state of beingness? What is my state of being right now? Changes everything. So yeah, that's kind of what my weekend offered me. And I'm still, you know, as far as this injury goes, which of course adds a level of, in some ways, a level of trepidation into my kind of life overall, because it's inconclusive. It feels like a big deal. You know, if this is injured in a long-term way, I don't have to deal with that. I'm hoping it's not, but that was one of the things that the doctor kind of put on the table. So, you know, but even that, you know, that was that sort of, that came at me last night after having had the appointment, and I had to kind of do the same thing that I did with the dishwasher repair, or with other things that feel like they could be, you know, feel like that they're powerful influences on me. They're trying to determine my internal state. So I'm lying in bed going, what if my wrist is injured? What if, you know, but at some point I was like, well, hold on. It is or it isn't. And what if my job is not to worry about whether it is or it isn't? And what if my job is not to feel good or bad one way or the other, whatever it turns out to be? What if my job is to be in a state of deep peace no matter what? And see if that isn't actually more at the core of my life than whatever my injury is about, or any other thing in my life. So, I know, it's an eclectic post, this one. I'm talking about my wrist injury, a doctor's appointment, installing a dishwasher, car trouble. It's all over the place. But it is all focused around our own mastery of our internal state. That's what it's all about. And I think anytime I can be reminded of that, anytime I can remind myself of that, it feels good. It feels right. It feels like, okay, I'm on the path. I'm keeping myself grounded in reality, grounded in the truth, instead of distracted by compulsion. So, anyway, thanks for watching, people. Have a wonderful day. I appreciate you. I'll see you very soon.